Israel News viewers, I'm Oriel Moran. This is Levi from Discover Israel Tour with Levi. Levi, where are we and what are we doing here?
We're at the coastal city of Ashkalon. We're going to talk about Samson, what his relationship was with this city, what happened, where are biblical references for him in this city, kind of incorporate the lifestyle that he went through as well.
That's incredible. I'm excited. Let's go.
Let's check it out. Ashkelon is a site believed to have inhabitants for the past 10,000 years. We know that at least 3,500 years ago there was an Egyptian presence here, since we found little idols specifically for the god of Isis, the fertile god. But afterwards we have this nation called the Philistines, or Poleshit. The people in academia today in Hebrew we call it Goyei Ayam, the people from the seas. And they came because of some economic crisis that happened in the 12th century BCE throughout all of Europe. They came to this fertile crescent and they found themselves a home. The locals weren't very happy with them, but they destroyed the local Canaanite inhabitants and they established themselves here, specifically in this city called Ashkalon. It might sound familiar to you as the Israeli money called shekel, which is one weight. One shekel is about 11 to 13 grams. Of weight, which would be traded. We are on a very important route right now, which is one of the major international routes going north and south in this region, called the Via Maris. Now these Philistines, they established themselves in 5 major cities, as we can see here, and written in the Bible multiple times. These arch enemies of the Judeans, the Israelites, which was Gaza, which are still arch enemies. We have Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gat and Ekron. These 5 cities in these regions were always within conflict of the Judeans. Now once we go into the site we can understand a little bit of the views that they had. We're going to get to a specific story today talking about the strong Judean warrior Samson, who he comes here and he settles his debt with some of the locals here. He also falls into the desire of women here and ends up mating with one of them, marrying one of them, and that is the beginning of his downfall. Now we are at the port city, probably one of the most important port cities in the whole region between Gaza and Ashkelon. Ashkelon was an important port city. When the sailors were out at sea for 2 months or 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time, it was mainly men on board, and when men would come into the city they would have certain needs to let loose, and one of them was a spiritual need and one of them was a physical need. The spiritual need was a temple, so they'd want to go pray that they got to land, that they succeeded their journey successfully, and you know, they want to bring their idols, and everyone had their little idol inside their pocket, or they had one big idol for the shop, for the whole boat. And they would come and they'd land on sea. And so right here by the port, we could see the sea was so close, and they would come just into the port city to the gate. They would pay their fair dues and their taxes for where they come in. They bring their produce, and the first thing they do is they would go pray. And we actually found a little idol figure just on this raised mount, as you can see just over there where people would pray. And right next to that, we found a brothel, which was not surprising to see in a port city. It's kind of another thing that the men wanted to do, and unfortunately we know this because we found inside of the gutter next to the structure lots of baby bones, and that was a very hard thing for us to find in this port city, but this was just give you an idea of the entrance of most port cities in the ancient world. Before us is the oldest arch gate in the whole world, dated to around 3,850 years ago. The oldest arched Canaanite gate. Now if you've been following our videos, this means we're at the entrance of the city. So this would have been the entrance to the Canaanite city in Ashkelon, a prominent site here inside of the Holy Land, which means the Judeans, like King David, possibly would have seen this. Samson definitely would have seen this, even though he came about 800 years after this gate was built. We could see how it was constructed and reconstructed. The base of it was always stone, as you could see over here. You can see the base is this carved out limestone, and on top of it we had what we call livnei bots, these mud stones which were made of straw and mud, kind of the same stones that we see during the Egyptian reign, and they're actually very solid stones. They could last for thousands of years. Now parts of this has been reconstructed because this is such a significant and important site. It's actually been covered to protect it. So let's walk through history together. Even during the Middle Bronze Age, around 4,000 years ago, we could see the ability for construction and the importance of fortification at the front of the city. That means civilization was not incredibly advanced, but relatively advanced and lived at a standard possibly higher than we can imagine today. We are in the city of Ashkalon, which was known for its freshwater sources and its ability to get next to the sea. So this city would have been fortified. One of the places where we believe modern history starts, the sprouting of civilization, was here. And so to see the magnitude and the size of this gate just shows the great importance of the city and possibly even the population of here. Throughout the next 2,000 years, Ashkelon becomes a staple part of Israel and a major part of its story, specifically in the Bible, talking about where we see Samson comes down to the city of Ashkelon. In the Bible, we hear about this mighty warrior figure named Samson, one of the lions of Judah. In his early years, him and his father and his mother were on a trip down to the land of Timnah. When they finally get to the vineyards of Timnah, Samson encounters this huge lion, and with great strength and power from God, he rips open the lion's jaws, and then he goes back to his mother and father without telling them a story. He meets a woman down there. Sometime later, he returns to the carcass and he finds that there's a swarm of bees and honey. He then scoops the honey out with his hand and eats it. Story number one. He returns to see the woman, happened to be a Philistine woman, and marries her. And as it was tradition during that time, he would make a feast and all the people in the city would come. And so there were about 30 men sitting around, and Samson says, "Let me riddle you a riddle." So let's dive into the Bible over here. We're talking from Judges chapter 14. "Let me riddle you a riddle," Shimshon says. "If you could answer me correctly during the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 blankets and 30 sets of clothing. But if you cannot, then you must give me 30 blankets and 30 sets of clothing." "Riddle your riddle," they said to him. "Let us hear." And he said to them, From the predator came meat, and from the fierce came something sweet." And that was it, one line. And they had to guess what that line was. As the time goes on, Samson's wife starts peer pressuring, or just pressuring him to give the answer so she can go and tell her comrades, the Philistines, about it. And Samson wasn't happy about it. And so my question is to you, put in the comments, what do you think the answer to this riddle is? Mere time later, they actually get the riddle. He comes down here, he then murders 30 men, he takes their clothing and he gives it to pay his fees. This wasn't looked at very favourably, yet this is a story which directly connects this city of Ashkalon, where I'm sitting now, and our biblical word of God.
As you can see behind me, it's huge, it's wonderful. Apart from the history that's here in the modern sense, you can have picnics here and look at the view of the ocean and all the things. I'm going to climb this Crusader Byzantine wall, and I want to talk to you guys about Samson for a second. When I think about the cultures that were here when he was alive, there were so many temptations, right? Beautiful temptations. I'm just looking about at the beach, at the water, and you think about what makes people weak, right? We all have our different things that we want, that we're tempted by, that we desire. Not all of these things are bad things, but these things in the context in which God did not allow, that would be considered something not permissible. And Samson had that kind of weakness, that he would go and seek those things that weren't for him. And I think it's a lesson for all of us to learn that it's not that God does not want to give us good things. It's about if we take those good things by force, and if those things end up rendering the blessing that we actually want to have from God, and are we willing to actually wait for it? So we can actually look at our weaknesses as strengths when we have our desires put in the hands of God. And I think Samson is a great lesson to learn.
We're a mere 5 kilometers to the border of Gaza. 3,000 years ago, like today, the people of Gaza were rather hostile. They were the Philistines back then. They took Samson, they paraded him through the streets and brought him to a temple. where thousands died in his last act. So they tied him to the two pillars of the temple. Samson then goes to pray to God for a last bit of strength. He pulls down the two columns, the roof collapses and thousands die. One of his downfalls was being seduced by his wife Delilah, and he eventually tells her the secret to his strength about his hair. She then cuts off his hair overnight, and that was one of his things where he fell.
What a spectacular day walking around Tel Ashkelon, where Samson walked, lived, made his mistakes. You know, he had a lot of weaknesses, but at the end of his life, he really did sort of make up for it by using his weaknesses to, as strengths to take out many Philistines with him. Levi, what do you feel about this place?
It's amazing. Walking and filming with the Bible really kind of brings me back to the historic times. And this would have been Philistine land, so us as Jews would have not been able to be here at all. And so to be in the same place where Samson was, we could feel the elements, the same elements, whether it's the breeze or the sea which calms us the same way, or look at the vegetation that grows. It helps me put together the pieces and image what the Bible is talking about better.
It's wonderful. It's been so great, and we hope that you guys have loved it too. If you want more Israel-related content, go to allisraelnews.com, hit the notification bell, hit subscribe, and Levi and I will see you guys in the next one.